Digestion starts in the brain. The very first step in the digestive pathway is your mind coming to the table and saying, oh, this is what we're doing. Great. And that happens because you smell your food, you look at it, perhaps you've been preparing it, and your digestive system gets ready.
Hi, I'm Dr. Avanti Kumar Singh, and this is the Healing Catalyst podcast. I'm a medical doctor with over 20 years of experience and also a lifelong practitioner of Ayurveda. I created the Healing Catalyst podcast because we all deserve a different kind of conversation about health, one that's honest, holistic, and rooted in both science and soul. On this show, I'm joined by the world's leading experts to give you science-backed tools that you can start using today and actually stick with to build real health and longevity. I am so glad you're here. Now let's get to it. Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome back to the Healing Catalyst podcast. I'm Dr. Avanti Kumar Singh, and I'm so thrilled to be back with you again this week. So today's episode is for every woman who knows what to eat, but still can't figure out why it isn't working. You inhale lunch at your desk, and an hour later, you're hungry again, like you never even ate. You cook the healthy meal, and you still feel bloated, heavy, like something is off. The vegetables go bad in the drawer. Meal prep Sunday just lasted maybe 2 weeks before you gave up. And so you think maybe Ozempic is the answer, right? Everyone is talking about this drug right now. And honestly, the idea that something can turn off the food noise, well, that sounds like a miracle when you've tried everything else. Am I right? But here's what most people don't realize. Your body already makes GLP-1, which is what is in Ozempic. So if your body already makes it, well, then why isn't it working? Well, it's because it's not just about what you're eating. It's about how you're eating it, how you're showing up to your meals. If you're rushing and stressed and distracted, your body literally cannot hear the signal that I'm full. That's not a willpower problem, which this diet industry has led us to believe. That's physiology. And my guest today is Dr. Erika Siegel, and she really breaks this down for us. She is a naturopathic physician with nearly 20 years in integrative medicine and functional medicine. And she's also the author of the beautiful 2-volume book called The Nourish Me Kitchen. In our conversation today, we get into what's really going on with your hunger and your satiety hormones, and what she really thinks about Ozempic and these other GLP-1 medications, and the surprisingly simple shifts that you can make starting today to help your body do what it already knows how to do. By the end of this episode, you'll understand why how you eat matters as much as what you eat. And again, you'll have some strategies you can start using today. Okay, let's get into it. Good morning, Erika. I am so happy to be here with you. Thank you for joining me to do this podcast.
Of course. Thank you so much for the invitation, Avanti.
Absolutely. I am really excited to talk to you because, first of all, you have this beautiful book, a 2-volume series. It's amazing. It's absolutely beautiful. And I'm so excited to talk to you about all of the wisdom that you have in this book. And really, what I'm so interested in starting with is understanding from you what your patients actually come to you with, like what's their issue? Because you've been in clinical practice for almost 20 years, right?
21 years.
Yeah, a long time. And I have a feeling that your patients are not coming to you saying, I don't know what to eat, or maybe they are, but they actually know a lot about food. So like, what is the issue that most of your patients are coming in or that you've found that most people have when it comes to nutrition and food?
Yeah. Well, I serve a large population, and I think one of the common denominators is overwhelm with where to start, how to integrate healthy concepts into my life, and really what would be appropriate for me personally, because there's so much noise out there in nutrition and self-care and healthcare, and people feel a little bit lost in it. And they've been outsourcing their wisdom and their own body feedback for so long that they maybe don't even know how to listen to their own cues. They say, well, I listen to this person, they tell me to do this. My doctor tells me to do that. I don't know what to do. And so one of the things I'm really trying to help people with is to get back to the basics that apply to all human beings and start to develop a relationship with ourselves where we can really tune in and listen and let that information inform our decisions.
So it's really the confusion and the overwhelm of like almost too much information. It's like, okay, do I listen to this person? Do I read that book? Do I understand that study? Like, I find that this is really common in every aspect of health and wellness, especially in the world that we live in right now. And I feel like that's an issue for so many people in different realms, whether it's movement or nutrition or like whatever it is, even meditation and stress relief. They're like, well, what do I do? Right. So it's this overwhelm. And I think that you bring up a really good point that it is about helping people understand that they have so much wisdom within. Sometimes it's just helping them reconnect with that, which is not simple. It's not easy to do. That's sort of the journey, right? So, one of the things I know you talk a lot about, and we've talked about this in person just when we've had conversations, is how our relationship with food actually affects our physiology, our digestion, our digestive capacity. And it's about this relationship with food, which I think is so important. So, can you talk to me more about that? Like, what do you mean by that exactly?
Yeah, it's such a good question and something for us to really think about is not just what's on our plate, but how are we coming to our plate? How are we showing up? Are we coming there with shame? Are we coming there with guilt? Are we showing up with all the stressors of the day while we watch TV or eating in the car while we're sitting in traffic? All of these things affect our digestion and our ability to make this food go from what it is to nutrition and for our body to take it in. So,
Hmm.
one aspect of this that I like to talk about is mindful eating and how being mindful and being present for your food preparation and for your eating will support your digestion because it's supporting your nervous system. It's turning
Hmm.
on the parasympathetic state, which is the rest and digest state, the state which is going to create all those gastric juices, hydrochloric acid, enzymes, sodium bicarbonate, the peristalsis that moves things along. And
Right.
all of that is really blunted. Studies say up to about 66% if we're in that sympathetic state, the run from a tiger stressed state. And
Right.
that we can create that state, one state or the other, with our intention and our mindfulness. We can, be totally distracted, or we can bring our presence and take a few deep breaths and intentionally have that moment where we say, you know what, right now, I'm going to take 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I'm going to look at this food. I'm going to eat it. I'm going to try to digest it. I'm going to tell my body, hey, this is what we're working on right now, instead
Right.
of the 10,000 things that we may put our attention on.
Right. I think that's such a good point. And, one of the questions I often get from people is, well, Dr. Kumar is saying I have eliminated X, Y, and Z from my diet. And I think that I am really mindful about what I'm eating and how I'm eating. So a lot of people feel that they are mindful and they're still not feeling well. What do you think is really going on there? Because I think so many people, again, have so much knowledge about what foods they should eat, what would be best for them. It's not always that they just have no idea what to eat, but it's like, what is the disconnect there then?
Oh, I think there's so much that could be at play. Someone might not have enough digestive fire to break down raw foods, and they're eating big salads, and then they feel bloated and uncomfortable, and they think,
Right.
well, this is what I'm supposed to eat. I'm supposed to eat raw vegetables. It's good for me to eat a salad. Well, yes, the
Exactly.
nutrition in a salad is good for people, but if you don't have the digestive fire to break it down, then it's going to sit there like a compost pile.
Mhm.
Perhaps someone has a deficiency in an enzyme to break a food down. They could be lactose intolerant because they lack the lactase enzyme. And these
Right.
are all things that we discover with trial and error and intuition and noticing, being a good historian. Like, oh, every time I eat ice cream, I get a bellyache. So maybe starting to take notes and understand that there's all these different relationships with our food and starting to notice how you feel when you eat. I will always ask people when they tell me that they're having stomach trouble, is there something that you know that if you eat it, you will be absolutely fine? Like, let's say you had to show up for an event and feel really good. What would you eat? And people often know, oh, well, then I would just eat zucchini chicken and rice.
Right.
Okay, now we've gotten somewhere. We know some safe foods to build from.
Mm-hmm.
What if we had you eat simply for a little bit and start to build from there? Like just cooked vegetables, chicken, or congee, khichdi, something that is simple, easy to digest. And then we build from there instead of starting with all the things and taking out one thing.
Right.
Maybe we pare it down and go really simple to a diet plan where it feels comfortable for you and then build.
Right.
And there's so many things that some people don't digest sulfur rich foods well. They lack the capacity to clear that sulfur. And I'll know when it's someone like that because they tell me they avoid garlic or garlic and onions.
Right.
So then we extend that. Okay, let's take all the sulfur foods way down. How
Right.
do you do?
Mm-hmm.
And just start to learn about your body and listen to its signals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's interesting what you're saying, because I think so many people think that it is a willpower thing of like, okay, if I just eliminate all these quote bad foods from my diet, what culture and the world says is bad for you, and I eat these quote healthy things, the salads or the vegetables,
Yeah.
that actually is part of the problem, because we've
Yes.
assigned good and bad in general, but not understanding what is good and bad, or what is, I like to say, health supporting and health weakening for us, specifically for our own bodies. And so let's talk about that. Like, this is that awareness, right?
Right.
But it's so hard to know where to start.
Yeah. I love thinking about that because anything can be friend or foe. And I tried to tell people, well, someone will say, well, can I drink coffee? And I say, I don't know. You tell me what happens when you drink coffee. I can't drink coffee. For you, it might be friend. It might be medicine. Yeah, that one cup might really bring you a lot of energy, increase blood supply to your brain, increase blood perfusion to your muscles, and make you feel sharp and efficient.
Right.
Therefore, that food is friend. But maybe by that third cup, you're getting acid reflux, you're getting anxiety, you're getting looser stools and trouble sleeping. So this
Right.
is where nothing is necessarily that simple. We have to experience it and check in. How am I doing? And then the more that you align with the pillars of health where you're feeling more balanced, then you'll be able to notice when you go off a little bit. And then you
Mhm.
can course correct from that place. So if you
Right.
keep your variables fairly stable where you're waking around the same time, getting good sleep, eating regularly, moving your body, getting sunshine and connection and all those good things,
Right.
then when you're off course a bit, you'll feel it, you'll see it, and then you'll be able to identify, oh, that's right, it is that third cup of coffee. Or maybe you stop coffee for a couple of weeks. And if you need caffeine, you do green tea or black tea, and you just check in. How do I feel?
Right.
What does my intuition tell me about this choice?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's such a great point of that awareness, but awareness takes that mindfulness, and just, it takes a little bit of time, right? Because I think we
Yes.
also live in this world where everything is about, like, we're trying to go through this task list and be productive. And so, okay, I'm going to plan my meal. It's all these quote healthy things, but I'm going to eat it really fast, right? So let's talk about eating speed, because I know that that is a really big thing to take into consideration. And a lot of people will hear about mindful eating and they're like, oh, yeah, whatever, And again, we've talked about the nervous system, but there is some physiology behind slowing down this process of like why your eating speed actually matters for your physiology.
It does. Yeah. Well, because digestion starts in the brain. The very first step in the digestive pathway is your mind coming to the table and saying, oh, this is what we're doing. Great. And that happens because you smell your food, you look at it, perhaps you've been preparing it, and your digestive system gets ready. So it starts producing saliva, which is why people's mouths will water. And if your mouth is watering, great. You have turned your digestion on. What's happening in your mouth is happening in your stomach. That's the first part. And then chewing and smelling your food continues to create those digestive juices. We need to chew our food because our stomach doesn't have teeth. So we need to break our food down to reduce the work on our digestive organs. We want our food to come in really well saturated with saliva. and well broken down. So it's just less work on the stomach.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole process really requires continued attention, because the second your energy is pulled away elsewhere, your digestive capacity goes down.
Mm-hmm.
So if you slow that process down, you allow your brain and your body to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
We also have the effect of slowing down our blood sugar spike, because if you eat really quickly, and let's say you drink a glass of orange juice before your meal and you chug that down and then you get into your meal, well, now you've entered the blood sugar roller coaster. Your blood sugar and insulin are going to rise. They will quickly fall off the cliff on the other side. And you
Mm-hmm.
haven't given your body a chance to absorb the fats and the proteins and the fiber from your meal, which will ultimately slow that glucose spike. So when you eat slowly and perhaps choose to eat your fibrous foods first, your vegetables first, you really slow down that glucose spike, which is one of the most physiologically important things of our eating and our health, is maintaining stable glucose. And
Mm-hmm.
that is better achieved when you eat slowly, intentionally, making sure your plate has a representative of protein, fat, and fiber on it. These are
Right.
all the things that a lot of people are talking about these days and are very important physiologically for our digestion and our total health.
Yeah. I mean, these are all such important things. And as you mentioned, there's like a whole slew of different hormones that are involved in eating. The brain will signal. You've got ghrelin, you've got leptin, GLP-1. All of these are at play in helping your brain understand hunger versus fullness. You're allowing for that whole cascade to happen, right? Those levers to turn on and off.
That's such an important point, because if you eat really quickly, you don't get those first signals. You're getting them late and you might overeat. So I'm really glad you
Mhm.
mentioned that, because when you eat a fat, it's going to take about 20 minutes for your brain to register that it is satiated.
Mhm.
And so if you continue eating beyond the time that you're actually satiated, then you are going to likely overeat. And there are
Right.
some Asian traditions that recommend that you eat until you're 80% full and then you wait.
Right.
And likely you'll actually find that you are completely satisfied if you just give it a little bit more time. And
Right.
slowing down the eating process allows for that.
Right. Yeah. Because like you get hungry and ghrelin is like, okay, you're hungry, right? It tells your
Yeah.
brain. And then you will then eat. But then what you're saying is you need to slow down the process so that the next piece in that cascade can actually signal, which is leptin, to
Yeah,
say, you're full, right? And if
exactly.
you don't allow enough time, that doesn't happen. You just keep eating.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're really dictated by our hormones. You know, like you said before, we often think it's a really power of will, but it's often we're just kind of puppets to our hormones. What's going on with glucose, glucagon, leptin, ghrelin, and the other cascade of hormones. And when we tune into our physiology, we allow for these hormones to direct us in a balanced fashion instead of a fashion where we're just surviving. You know, if our
Right.
glucose and insulin fall off that cliff, then we're going to reach for the chocolate cake, because
Hmm.
we actually are at this point just trying to survive. Our brain says, I don't care how you get it, but get me sugar quickly.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I wanna ask you a question. I have 2 questions for you, but I wanna go
Yes.
to this question first because I wanna talk about eating order because you mentioned that, and I know that there's some science behind what order you eat the meal in. I know Ayurveda talks about that, and there's physiology. But before we get to that, let's just go back to one thing is GLP-1s, right? The Ozempics and the Wegovys, this is like the big thing. It's you can have a shot of this, it's gonna help control your cravings, etcetera. Can you help us understand, like, what exactly is a GLP-1? Like, how does it play in this whole cascade that we've just been talking about?
Right. So the GLP-1s, which we naturally produce as well
Right.
as you can take exogenously, are agonists to receptors that tell your body, the GLP receptors, tell your body that you're full, that you're
Mhm.
satiated. And when we initiate those receptors naturally or we take something, it will reduce what people call food noise. It reduces appetite. It also slows motility down. The upside of the GLPs is that it can help reestablish good patterns in someone's eating and help them lose weight. The downside is that we're often seeing that people are losing their appetite and losing a lot of weight and losing a lot of lean body tissue. So they're often losing muscle, which is a real problem, because if they get off that medication and they go back to their old ways, their likelihood is that they will gain weight back, and they've now lost muscle, and what they're going to gain back is likely going to be adipose tissue or fat. So I do think that there's a place for these medications. I think that they have done wonders for many people, especially for type 2 diabetics, people with metabolic syndrome, that just no matter what they do, they cannot seem to move the weight. And I have some patients that are doing it really responsibly, very low dose, spread out over time, losing a half a pound a week, making sure they're getting their protein with every single meal and that they're still doing strength training. So they are fighting that potential of losing lean body mass. But it's a slippery slope, and it is tricky because some people are just losing their appetite and not eating anymore, and they're not eating enough. And if you reduce your calorie load too much, your body will learn to manage that and go into starvation mode. And then eventually you won't lose weight, and you'll only gain weight if you regain normal calorie load. So it's a tricky subject. I think it can be done well, but just prescribing it without a lot of support is perhaps a problem. And I do think that a lot of people are going to have rebound to weight gain and lose their very important lean body mass, their muscles. And I'm seeing this a lot where the pattern is people are losing the weight in their legs. They're losing their quadriceps. That is essential for our healthy aging. That is essential for our balance. That is essential for our blood sugar stability. So I want to see people using that medication smartly if they're going to use it, which is at the lowest dose, spread out over time, maintaining their necessary calories, making sure they're getting their protein, their fat, and their fiber, and still doing strength training so they can really keep that body mass.
Yeah, I mean, I think these are all amazing points. Thank you for sharing that, because there's so many women who are in this midlife time, perimenopause, menopause, and they talk about how their bodies completely change because of all the hormonal changes of estrogen, progesterone, et cetera. And they start to gain weight in ways and places that they never have had issues, right? It's always been easy to maintain their body the way that functions well for them. They feel good in it. They don't have pain, et cetera. And then suddenly everything changes. And so these medications become really sort of like, oh my gosh, could that help me? And we hear, again, there's so much noise about this. Again, people will ask me, which way do you feel? And again, it's all situational, because they can be really helpful to a lot of people for a lot of other medical reasons and risk factors that they have. Like, I mean, I know even for a lot of women who are breast cancer survivors like myself, this is actually in the literature now talking about how can these GLP-1 medications actually help so that women don't regain weight, because increased weight puts you at risk for recurrence of breast cancer, et cetera, et cetera. There's all of these different things that are going on. So if you were to talk to a woman who is perimenopausal or menopausal, and they said to you, Dr. Siegel, I really am thinking about doing a GLP-1, what do I do? What would you say to them?
Well, I'm always happy to have those conversations, and I'm first going to check to see that all the other pillars and that the hormone balance is in play, because GLP-1 is just one arm of the treatment strategy. So first, I want to make sure, okay, is their sleep good? How are their rhythms? Are they drinking water, eating good, balanced meals? What's their movement like? I mean, I want to make sure strength training 2 to 3 times a week, that they're getting into zone 2 times a week, that they're doing HIIT training 2 times a week. That all of that, for me, I would like to see in place, or at least a strategy to get that in place, because that is the foundation that is going to keep you in a healthy state beyond GLP and get you to your metabolic potential at this moment. I also will be very interested in hormone replacement therapy, bioidentical hormone replacement, if they are candidates for that, which I think a lot more women are candidates than they think. Even breast cancer survivors, there's so much great research right now. This book, Estrogen Matters, talks about this, that even breast cancer survivors could be on a very low dose of estriol. So getting all of that, the entire picture. I'm an integrative physician practicing functional medicine. So I'm going to look at all aspects. I'm never going to say yes GLP or
Right.
no GLP. I'm going to say, tell me the whole story. I want to know all of it. I want to know if you're sleeping, because if you're not sleeping, it's going to be really hard to lose weight. What's your cortisol like? We are complex organisms. So I want to know the whole story.
Right.
And then I might say, yeah, it sounds like you are really doing all the right things. Let's layer on the GLP-1. Let's start really low dose. Let's see how you respond. Let's see if we can get you to move some of this visceral fat, which is likely what's causing the weight gain, and make sure that they're being honest with themselves about, are you hitting your protein and fiber goals? Really, that's what I want to see in place first, is the foundational lifestyle things. And then always happy to layer on medications in a targeted fashion that are going to have a very specific effect.
Yeah, I think thank you for that. That's really helpful because I think that it is so important. Again, this comes back to, really integrating all of life because all of life affects your health. And so it can't just be, okay, I just need to get rid of this weight and let me do this medication. Again, there's no judgment. I think that it's very helpful, but it's really, like you said, taking into consideration, like, what is the full picture? And I do think that integrative physicians, functional medicine physicians really understand how to look at that whole picture and advise you in that way. So thank you for that. Let's talk about this idea of what order you should be eating foods in during a meal, because I think that's like a really simple place sometimes to just start if you're overwhelmed with like, okay, I don't know what to eat, or is this healthy for me or is this not? And so many people will also say like, I don't know what foods make me feel bad. Like there's a lot of people who just they're not sure and they get overwhelmed. So would this be a good place to start of like, okay, thinking about what order you're eating food in?
Yeah, I mean, I think to answer the second question first, simplifying your diet, again, trying to find the things that you know are a safe bet. Is it soup? Is it zucchini, rice, and tofu? Is it a smoothie? Go to your safe bets. Start small and build. And then as far as the order in which to eat, the research shows that in order to stabilize blood sugar, which is one of our primary goals in our nutrition, if you eat something fibrous at the beginning of your meal, especially leafy greens or cooked veggies, it will create a gel coating in your stomach that slows down the glucose transmission into your blood. So fiber first, and then your protein and fats, and then ideally you're saving your carbohydrates for towards the end of the meal. Well, that's no fun if you're having pasta because you want pasta with that yummy sauce. So I would say don't overthink this too much. But if you can tolerate salad, eat your salad first. That is just like an easy way to go. Eat your salad first. Eat some cooked, and I'm not talking about your whole salad. You could just eat half your salad or half your veggies. Just give your body that opportunity to have the fiber hit there first, as opposed to a glass of wine first, because that glass of wine is a sugar rush. It goes straight into your bloodstream. It actually goes straight to your liver very quickly. And now you are going to start depositing extra fuel away. Your sugar's going to go up and your liver is going to get a rush of fructose and it's going to freak out a little bit. And when it gets fructose, it gets a signal to deposit fat. So one thing I will tell people is if they tend to start drinking their wine before they eat, I ask them, are you willing to have your wine with your meal instead of before your meal? And when people say, oh yeah, that wouldn't be a problem, then I say, okay, do that. Let's scoot that forward. And then another really important thing is what's happening with the last few hours before bed. So some people will have their dinner and then 2 hours later, they will have a bowl of ice cream or they will have a big thing of popcorn and they will have a snack, dessert. That is really sabotaging their metabolic health because when you eat right before bed, you now have a hormone cascade that is working against you to create growth hormone, do a lot of healing, and lose weight. So if people just absolutely want their dessert, they want their ice cream, their bowl of popcorn, I say, okay, let's consider that as part of your dinner. Think about it as literally part of your dinner. So if you're going to have ice cream, maybe reduce the rice or the sweet potato or the pasta because now that's your carb and tack it on right to the end of dinner. Because when you're done with dinner dessert, you're done.
Done.
At
Right.
that point on, it is tea and water. That's it. No more calories, ideally for 3 hours before bed, because that will allow your digestion to digest your food. So you're not going to have reflux and heartburn. And it allows for all the hormonal cascades that are required for good sleep, for less cortisol production, for you to lose weight and build muscle. So that is a really important timing issue.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about that a lot on this podcast of like trying to finish your last meal earlier, give your body some rest. And there's physiology behind this. And a lot of people are like, is it that easy? Yeah, it is. Actually, it can be.
Yes.
That's a powerful change that you can make that will then help accelerate all of the other things that you are going to do.
Yeah. And it's okay to go to bed a little hungry. It's
Right.
okay. Unless there's always circumstances. Like,
Of course.
I don't think a single child should go to bed hungry. They need that snack before bed. That is their intelligence saying, I need to eat before I go to bed, because they are so metabolically efficient and they're burning so much. So
Right.
all the way through teenhood, absolutely. Like, my kids will eat a full meal 20 minutes before bed. It's like their fifth or sixth meal of the day, because they're
Right.
6 foot tall boys. Like,
Yeah.
I anticipate that they need that. But
Right.
now my body says, you don't need that. And I appreciate understanding the physiology behind it, because sometimes I'll get a hunger cue and think, oh, I need to solve that. That's not safe.
Right.
But what do I need fuel for? I'm getting in bed. I
Right.
really need for my digestion to be quiet, so my body can handle all the rest of the things that it has to deal with.
Right. Right. We always talk about that hunger cue, that midnight snacking that happens is really your brain interpreting the signals of your digestive fire. From an Ayurvedic standpoint, your digestive fire is increasing at nighttime, but that's for cleanup. That's not for handling new food. It's for handling the old stuff to clean it up and detoxify. And that's actually what happens physiologically in the body. And so we misread that because we're awake and we're like, oh, I'm hungry. But actually, your body just wants to rev up to clean up. So I
Yep.
think it's really understanding what is the pattern of the body also, and that helps you interpret things a little bit better.
Yeah. And there's also, of course, circumstances. A woman who's pregnant, she might need to eat
Right.
even in the middle of the night. And I would say for people that feel unstable blood sugar in the middle of the night, that they can eat something before bed, but it should just be protein, literally protein powder and water. And that
Mhm.
way the blood sugar stays stable. It's not a lot of work to digest,
Right.
but it could get you through that 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock awakening. And that's a circumstance where I will say, okay, have 100 calories of protein
Right. Yeah.
before bed. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So let's talk about the other sort of big thing that you talk about, especially in this book, because the first volume of the book is all about the wisdom and all of these principles. And the second volume in your book set is all the recipes. So I know that you are a very big proponent of cooking at home. And I know not a lot of people have heard some of this, but let's talk about it, because cooking at home can really change so much for people. Let's talk about beyond the healthier ingredients. Why does cooking at home really matter for our health? There's a lot of research on this, I know.
So there's so much there. There's first just the emotional, spiritual relationship with your food, your family, your home, your kitchen. This is where life happens, right? Right here. We are in my kitchen right now. This is where our life happens. This is where our kids do homework at the table,
Right.
where we have our conversations, where we come together, and where we talk about what are we going to make, and we chop vegetables together, and it's a ritual that is often lost now because everything is accessible and easy. And it breaks my heart to think that we're losing that connection. We're losing the connection with what's growing right outside our door that we might be able to grow and bring in and put on our plate, and that we're losing our connection with making our own food and nourishing ourselves. When we make our own food, we also get to choose the ingredients. We get to choose what oils are going in. We get to choose how much salt to add, if we're going to leave the sugar out, to put a lot of veggies on our plate, maybe to go with less of the rice and more of what I call the growing foods, because it's not based on just volume. If a restaurant is making food, they're thinking about volume and bottom line. And so you're going to get a plate of food that is not representative of good nutrition. You're going to get something that represents what they have access to and what was probably most affordable to make. And that does not necessarily translate to what is best for your body.
Right.
There's been research that shows that eating at home, eating home-cooked meals reduces your risk of obesity and diabetes by 25%. I think the numbers are higher than that even, because when we go to a restaurant, we will just often overorder and overeat. When we cook at home, we eat what we're going to eat. We put the rest over for leftovers. And there's just a different relationship with the food that we make at home. And I find that most food from a restaurant is oversalted, oversugared, too much sauce of something that we might not want. And it is absolutely going to use a cheap seed oil or veggie oil that we didn't want in the first place. So I just think it's very empowering to choose your own food. And even if you're overwhelmed and life is just seems like too much, you can make one thing and you can make a whole big batch of it. You can make one big batch of soup that you then have for lunch every day that week. And that's very empowering to know that at least one meal of the day is a winner. It is something you're choosing to eat, and you can have leftovers on rotation. You just have a lot more power when you cook for yourself and you teach your family members to cook for themselves. And it's a lifelong skill.
Right.
I will always encourage that. That's why with my book and the recipes, I try to make my recipes accessible, fun, easy, enjoyable, flexible, where people can trade things out and give people the confidence to be able to take good care of themselves, primarily through cooking for themselves.
Yeah, I think that you bring up so many good points. And yes, the research is clear that when you eat at home, you have less risk factors for so many chronic illnesses, whether it's diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, heart attack. I mean, there are studies to prove all of that. And that's great. But then how do you translate it into what you do? Because again, we live in this modern world where we're trying to do a bazillion things all day long and check things off the list, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that so many of us, myself included, have a complicated, anxious relationship with trying to cook, right? Because for many of us who are women who maybe have worked outside of the home, have different careers, for us, that wasn't as easy to do. We're just always doing things outside of the home and like, okay, cooking too. Like we think that we have to be these homemakers like Martha Stewart or whoever, and like they're cooking these gourmet meals. So for someone who's already feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where I start. Where do we start? What would you suggest to that person?
Well, something that you mentioned in a previous conversation that we had is the concept of food assembly.
Yes.
And I really like this idea. And it's like, think about your refrigerator as a salad bar, or where you just grab a little of this and grab a little of that. So one thing you could do is grab cabbage, carrots, and kale, throw it in a food processor, get it all shredded, put it in a Tupperware. Do a tray of a protein, choose what you want, protein, chicken, lentils, tofu. Now you've got a protein. Have some avocados around and make a yummy sauce, a dressing or a dip. And let's get a carbohydrate in there. Get out a rice cooker, make some rice or quinoa, do a tray of sweet potatoes, right? Something like that. And then you build, okay? Now it's assembly. You pull out your rice, you heat it up, you throw your tofu on top, you throw your shredded veggies, and then you grab a sauce. I have 11 dressings in my cookbook and like 10 dips. They are all so delicious. You make one of those, you figure out which one you love, you triple the recipe, keep it in your fridge, and then you just pour it on top.
Right.
So we don't have to make elaborate meals. I like to eat simply. I like to just build like, okay, what's my starch? It's going to probably be quinoa, rice, sweet potato, plantain. And then what's my protein? Grab one of those few things. And then I put something yummy on top. It doesn't have to be a big elaborate thing. Or it could be a one pot meal where you put a chicken in, but a bunch of potatoes, onions, carrots, and you put it all in and you put it in the oven. The whole thing is done. And then you grab a handful of salad greens, put it on your plate, done. And then when you're cooking, always cook enough for your future self. You will be hungry tomorrow. You will be hungry next week. If you've already messed up the kitchen, you're chopping up a bunch of stuff. It's probably 10 to 20% more work to double a recipe.
Right.
So make twice as much. And then when it cools down, freeze some. So it's that gift to your future self where you're going to pull out of the freezer an already prepared Tupperware with your soup in it, with your stew, whatever you have going on.
Yeah.
And also delegate. If you live with other people, give them jobs. Hey, will you cut these carrots? Hey, will you be on this? And then you create the meal together. If you have someone that helps with the kids, have them help cook, give them jobs, print out recipes and say, hey, while the kids are napping, would you please prepare the vegetables for this? If you have the budget for having a helper help you cook, who literally comes over and cooks at your house and puts some meals there, that is an excellent way to use your resources. You can hire a teenager for this. You can hire someone in your neighborhood who
Yep.
wants some extra work for however much you think that's worth, and have them meal prep and just say, I want you to make beans and rice. I want you to make a soup and chop these vegetables. I don't even know where these vegetables are headed, but they're already chopped. So you've taken all the work away from me. So
Mm-hmm.
just start to think about, I will be hungry tomorrow and next week. How can I create some strategy like we do
Right.
for all the other areas of our life and get the help that you need to make it happen?
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think that you're bringing up so many good points. First of all, it's so good for your health, right? We've already talked about that. But then I think it's also this community piece that you've addressed. Like, get the other people who are living with you to participate. I mean, food is a way that we build community. We eat around the table together, right? That is the whole point. Although in modern life, that has become less true, right? So that is part of the problem. But bringing that back into sort of our everyday, and it's not only for holidays and birthdays, but it's
Right.
an everyday occurrence. Like some of the things that you've said, I've really tried to lean into a lot in the past 10 years of, first of all, involving everybody, making this food assembly sort of perspective of like making it simple, easy meals, the same sort of formula, carbohydrates, fiber, vegetables, some protein, and there you go. But then also, I really try to make meals an experience. And I talk about this when I talk about this idea of the principle of Ayurvedic eating. People who've listened to this podcast for a while know I talk about this a lot and I've written about it, is that what you eat matters, but why, where, when, and how much matter just as much, if not more. And these are a lot of the things that you're talking about, the physiology of like your mental state of when you're eating or approaching food that affects how you digest it. But things like using the really nice china for a dinner on a weeknight. There's
Absolutely.
something really beautiful and indulgent and
Yes.
sort of like, I'm going to live my life every day to the best and not just save this really beautiful napkins or candles or
Yes.
plates for a special occasion.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I think it speaks to this concept of reverence.
Mm,
Reverence for what's in front of us, this beautiful food, reverence for being together as a family, which then creates more gratitude.
right.
So, and if you live through the lens of gratitude and reverence and love, then you see it everywhere. And it's just as simple as try to have colors on your plate. Your plate should be colorful. If your plate looks all brown and gray, well, what could you do? You could grab a handful of arugula, throw it on there, maybe chop some tomato, and now it's visually so appealing. And your body says, "Oh, thank you." It responds to that.
Right.
And so these are the little things. I love how Ayurveda is always taking into account all the flavors, all the
Right.
colors, balance. And it
Mhm.
really is about that. So if you look at beautiful food photography, you'll notice there will always be a contrast of color.
Yes.
So even with a red sauce, there's going to be parsley on top because that contrast speaks to our nervous system and it speaks to our sensuality, and we're sensual beings. So like one of the most sensual things we can do is eat and bring all of our senses to it.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing that up, like using the good china. Why
Yeah.
not? You can wash
Why
it and
not?
use it again.
I really do that, and it's something I learned from my mother because we lived in a very Ayurvedic way of, like, how it looks on the table, on the plate really matters, and she used to, arrange our fruits after school, like, cut up on a little plate, and it was always beautiful, and
Love
I
it.
have carried that with me, and I've always done that.
Yeah.
Everyone in my family knows, like, if we order, they will actually transfer or give me the plate because they know that mom wants the real plate to eat out of.
Yes.
I love that. And that's actually such a simple way for so many people. Like
Mhm.
if you're so intimidated by cooking and you're overwhelmed, okay? get some healthy food, order from your favorite place that you know is
Yeah.
really healthy and that works for you. But then
Mm-hmm.
take that moment to put it into a
Yeah.
real plate. Start there. I
Yeah.
love that
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. Eat with real
Yes.
silverware if you have it. Always, even at the restaurant, if
Yeah.
they give me something plastic, I'm like,
Yeah.
do you have anything
Yeah.
else? I don't want to eat with this. It makes me feel disconnected,
Because it changes the whole experience.
the
It
whole experience.
really does. It does.
Yep.
Something so small. So, okay, let me really quickly, I've got a couple more questions for you. First of all, I would love to know, I mean, you have this beautiful book of recipes. What are the recipes that make it to your table? Like, what are some of your
Yeah.
go-tos?
Well, there's 300 recipes in that book, and
Oh,
every single one of them has been tested and created in this kitchen. And so some of them came to our table for months because I was reworking. Some haven't seen the light of day in a long time because they were more difficult. But the ones that are part of our rotation, the dal I make every week or two, it's our family's favorite meal. And I learned how to make that from an Indian family 20 years ago and started on a journey of actually having spices in my house, real spices that excite me and are
yep.
so alive. So we make that. And that's something that I would recommend for people to make because it can feel intimidating because maybe they've never worked with coriander, cumin, or turmeric. And they're not actually intimidating. They're just the same as the oregano and the thyme and the garlic salt
Right.
that you've used. So expanding in that way is really important, I think, for our confidence. A lot of the soups, so there's a Bubby's chicken soup that we make a lot. And there's a roasted root veggie soup that we make a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I like to make the dressings and the dips because they're just such a staple for our kitchen. One of the dressings is a ginger carrot dressing that I basically reverse engineered the Benihana ginger
Mm-hmm.
dressing
Oh,
because I loved it so
favorite.
much as a kid. But then I went as an adult and I was like, oh God, it's too sweet. And it's probably that weird ingredient. So I figured out how to make it and
Mm-hmm.
I'll make double batch of that. And then we'll put that on everything. So you can
Yeah.
put it on your veggie rice stir fry. I use dressings a lot beyond the salad. Those are staples in our house. We'll make the chocolate chia cookies. Those are a staple. Everybody loves those. I always bring them when I go somewhere. And people are always crazy about those cookies because they feel like a superfood in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'll have them as
Yep.
a snack and I will feel energized and really good from them. Like all my
Sure.
sweets are actually superfoods in disguise. Yeah, there's just so many in there that I'm really the most popular one that gets the most action is the life-changing loaf of bread,
Okay.
which you got to try it, Avanti.
I'm going to.
It is hands down. It's not my recipe. I got it from a patient and it is just the gift that keeps on giving. It's a really simple recipe. You throw it all in a silicone loaf pan and then you bake it and it's very easy. And it's a nutty, seedy, very hearty bread that is gluten-free. It's made with oats, nuts, and seeds. Very satisfying. So that's a family favorite. Yeah.
Amazing. Like, I love
Yeah.
it because you just sent me this book. So I'm going to do some of these recipes over the break. For the listeners, we'll make sure that we link the book in the show notes so that you all know where to go to get all of these beautiful recipes and this wisdom from Dr. Siegel. Let me just ask you one last question. I always end my episodes with this question because, I call this podcast the Healing Catalyst podcast because my whole point and aim is to really help people find these different things that can catalyze their own healing, take
Yes.
their healing back into their own hands, that power, right?
Mhm.
So, someone who's listening to this episode, what is one thing that you would suggest if they're feeling disconnected from food or they have a complicated relationship with food? What is one thing that they could do starting today to start healing that relationship with food?
Yeah. Well, maybe they could think of a favorite food that they like to order or they had as a kid, a comfort food, and see if there's a way for them to make it at home. And if it isn't something that's necessarily healthy, like make a healthier version of it.
Mhm.
So something that they already feel comfortable with and feels cozy to them, and make it and get the confidence to know that you can still eat your favorite foods, but maybe you could switch out the oil or reduce the sugar
Mhm.
or just make it at home and know that you can absolutely do it. You can follow the steps and be empowered to make that delicious dish in your own home
Mhm.
and recognize that you don't have to be able to make everything, but just try to find the one thing, and then the one thing becomes the two things. And when you're cooking, just make a little extra as a gift to yourself for the future.
Mhm. Yeah, I love those things. Thank you so much, Dr. Siegel. Thank you so much for being here. I have loved talking to you. And thank you for all, sharing all your wisdom and your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. So nice to be here.
Okay, I don't know about you, but I am going to be thinking about this episode and this conversation for a while. What I loved was when Dr. Siegel told us that it's not complicated. And she didn't give us a list of 25 things to try and change. She helped us see that our bodies already know what to do. We're just not giving them the right signals or the right conditions. And that reframe, that's powerful medicine. My favorite part of the conversation was when she said that digestion actually starts in the brain before you even take a bite of food. When you smell your food, when you look at it, when you actually sit down and become present to your meal, that's when your body is already getting ready to digest. But if you skip that step, if you're eating while you're stressed, while you're scrolling, while you're running out the door, your body never gets the memo that a meal is about to happen. And that's why you can eat a full meal and never feel full. It's not the food, it's the state of your mind and your body when you eat the food. So here's your Health RX takeaway for this week. And this one is really simple. Before your next meal, sit down, pause, and take 3 deep breaths. That's it. Tell your brain that food is coming and get ready for it. Get the digestive juices flowing. That's all you need to do. And if you want to take it one step further, during your meal, eat your vegetables first. Get that fiber in there first to slow down the absorption and stabilize your blood sugar. And if you try either of these takeaways, please let me know how they're going for you. You can send me a message on Instagram or send us an email. I'd love to hear how it's going for you. Thank you so much for being here. And if this episode helped you and made something click for you, share it with a friend who needs to hear it. And leave a review if you haven't already. It really does help people find this show and helps the show grow a lot. I'd really appreciate it. Remember, healing isn't just possible, it's in your power. I'll see you next time. Until then, be well. Thank you for listening to The Healing Catalyst. If you found this episode helpful, please hit follow and share it with a friend. And if you feel inspired, please rate and review because it helps others find this podcast more easily. For more insights and tips, head to my website at avantikumarsingh.com. And to connect with me directly, find me on Instagram at avantikumarsingh. I loved sharing this episode with you. My hope is that you heard something today that sparks a catalyst in your healing journey and helps you build lasting health. Be well, and I'll see you next time. This is a Dante 32 production.